All right, welcome everybody. It is episode 2 of our meetup, and I'm really excited about today and today's content. We have a lot to go through. Our guest today is Zach Butcher. He'll join us in just a minute. But before we jump in, I failed to do this in our last episode. I don't know why. Who knows? It was my fault. But the announcement of Istio 1.9.1 was released or was made on March the 1st, and so I'm really excited about that. And more importantly, we had a pretty big event last week. That was IstioCon. And IstioCon was really just a lot of fantastic content, a variety of content from customers, community, maintainers, and so on. And I'm really excited about really what was delivered. So go check out the IstioCon. I'll link the page on the website and in the into the chat here in just a little bit. But there are recordings, there are slides. There's a lot of stuff to run through, not only in English, but also in Chinese, thanks to our friends over in China, and Jimmy Song in particular, and the rest of the team there. And really looking forward to getting all of you to actually look at that and provide some feedback as we continue the mesh journey and get Istio out to the world. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today, which I don't believe he needs any introduction, and that is Zach Butcher. And welcome to the show, Zach.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back. I think we're going to have a lot of fun kind of talking through.
Hey, Zach.
Do we want to go ahead and dive right in?
Might be having some audio problems there with you. Can you hear me?
Oh, no. Yes, I can hear you. And I can hear myself echo to you.
Sorry, folks.
Do you need
we
me
are
to
having
reconnect?
a slight technical difficulty, and I don't understand why. Let's see here.
Let me just reconnect.
All right, Zach, can you hear me? Give me a little bit of a nod. For some reason,
I can hear you.
but we are not able to hear you.
Okay, let me just reconnect real quick.
Okay, you're good. Go ahead, man. All right, sorry about that, everybody. Looks like we had a little bit of technical difficulty. I'm going to get Zach back in here and get him going. Hey, Zach, let's see. Let me add you here. All right, man.
Hey,
Can you? Yeah, we're good. Glad you're on,
good.
and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. This is your show, and let's see what you got today.
Awesome. So like I said, when y'all can hear me, thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive into GetIstio here with y'all in a little bit more depth than we did kind of previously. And I think we're going to spend most of it today kind of in the terminal. Just generally speaking, what I want to show y'all is some around some of the CA integrations. I'll use the GCP CA as a particular example here, just because it's easy to set up. And we'll talk through kind of what some of the GetIstio UX, what maybe some of the CA integrations look like, and I do want to call out some of the content on the site too, kind of towards the end. And one of the things I really want to dig into is like how the whole cert issuance thing goes, and what Istio control, what GetIstio Gen CA is actually doing. So just to set context, we have an empty Kubernetes cluster. I mentioned I am just using G Cloud or Google Cloud for this for now. So we can see I have we have this Istio community cluster. My kube control is already set up to talk to it. So if we go ahead and just get the NSs here, we should see just kind of this is a stock Istio cluster that we just deployed. The only thing that I did ahead of time was label the default namespace for Istio injection. But we don't have any Istio here or anything. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is just like check what version I have. Actually, very helpfully, GetIstio will tell you that it has updates, and it does have a self-update command there. So let me go ahead and just pull down the latest. And then let's make sure that I actually have the latest download of Istio itself as well. So 090 is the latest in GetIstio at the moment, even though 091 just came out. Sorry, 191 just came out recently. So we'll have that one soon. But from here on out, we'll be using kind of Istio 190 under the hood. I'll actually abbreviate that to IC, and you've already seen me abbreviate kubectl to K. So that's kube control. IC, I have alias to just GetIstio control here, right? So the first thing we'll do is just go ahead and install a fresh Istio. And this is no different than the Istio control installation command here, right? So we'll go ahead and just do that. Oh, whoops, and I actually need to set a profile. That helps. We'll run through some of the pre-flight checks. Whoops, sorry. This looks good to me, so we will go. And that'll get installing kind of in the back end there. And so while that's going, I want to kind of talk through what the actual CA integrations here are. So one of the big complaints or pain points that we hear is folks that are coming in, these days, previously Istio used to get self-signed certificates, or it would create for itself a self-signed certificate to use for MTLS in the mesh. That's great for demos. When it actually comes to a real production deployment, you need to be using a PKI, or you need to be using certs that are rooted in your organization's existing PKI. And this is just for manageability. This is for to give your security team the visibility and insight into what's happening, to be able to handle revocation and rotation, that kind of thing. So really, you should only be using the self-generated certs or the self-signed certs in demo style environments. So fortunately, in modern Istio, I think starting in 1.7 or certainly in 1.8 now, we'll actually go to the kube API server, and the kube API server has a CSR API, and we can actually use that. It requires a pretty modern version of Kubernetes, but that does work as well. And so if you're in that boat, you can get easier integrations you can make it easier for Istio to integrate with your overall PKI by having that PKI integrate with Kubernetes. But what we're going to cover here is how we can actually start to do that with other CAs. And again, I'll use the GCP CA as an example. The AWS PCA, or the private CA there, is another good example. So fortunately, Istio is now installed. We can go ahead and verify what version we have actually installed in the cluster. Great. And we have two proxies running, right? And if we see, these would be the ingress and egress proxies in Istio system, right? So we've now finished a vanilla Istio install here. And now what we want to do is go ahead and set it up to use a custom CA. And I've actually gone ahead and I've already created a CA in Google Cloud. So Google has a private CA certificate authority service. It's tucked under their security heading. So if you come down here to security, the certificate authority manager, and I would just point out, I did all this exactly following the docs here. So there's a phenomenal set of docs, and generally for a lot of the different things you want to do in Istio, there's some great docs here. I'll also just take a second to call out the Istio cheat sheet, which is a phenomenal resource too. But I went ahead and did the setup. So I set up a CA. I did go ahead and configure my app credentials too. So you see, I have credentials that Google stuff can use there locally. And again, these setup steps cover this in pretty great detail. And so if you're just trying to play around with this, there's a very easy path to follow. I literally did it this morning to set up the demo. And the net result of that is that we have a CA in Google Cloud. It is a root CA. And we can see, just some of the subject info that I filled in. I'm given the demo from here in Alabama, so that's my locality. But otherwise, this is fairly standard subject information. So now what we want to do is get an intermediate signing certificate from this root and give it to the Istio installation that we just created here. That way, we are rooting all the MTLS that's happening in this cluster in the trust that we establish, or that root of trust that's there in GCP. And obviously, GCP, this would be a place where you might, take your organization might mint an intermediate cert to give to the Google Cert Authority. So this would be then how you would get subordinate CAs for each Istio cluster. And that's actually probably another important thing to touch on, is the idea that you should be using a separate subordinate CA, a separate signing cert for each Istio installation. It's a good security best practice. So now, and again, we're just following through the guide here. What I want to do is create a little bit of config for actually getting the cert from Google. And we can go look at this in Vim. There's a couple of things. So this is the name that I set up ahead of time. Fortunately, the Google tells you exactly what this is somewhere in here. There's the exact path and name for you to pull. This will vary for your project and based on where you actually are creating that CA. In my case, I'm using my test project, Aardvark Avalanche, and we're in US East. Then we get into, and this is provider specific, there's an AWS stanza here where instead of giving, this resource name like GCP takes, you give an ARN for a CA in Amazon, right? And I would just point out very quickly, whoops, if I can exit Vim, that there is a little bit of help here. Whoops, and I can't type either. If we look at the actual help output here for the command, it does actually give us some examples of what we might need for like a GCP provider, or what we might need or want for an AWS provider, for instance. So those are there, and that is also in the documentation on the website too. So you don't have to create this config from nothing. But there it is. And so in general, this is pretty basic stuff. First we want to say, hey, where, did we configure Istio different or weird? Is the CA cert in a different spot? No, it's an Istio system. And then we want to say, hey, if there is a CA cert that exists already, just go ahead and overwrite it. In my particular case, and I'll show you this in a second, there's not, because I'm using Kubernetes 1.18. Therefore, Istio just got one from the Kube API server, but we'll be creating one. And then we get into just what are the CA options, and this is pretty normal stuff. How big is the key? How many days is it valid for? Nothing crazy there. And then we just get into the normal cert params, right? Which is what's the subject? What are email addresses? And this all matches the root that I had already created in Google here, right? So my subject is actually going to be very similar to the subject for the root CA. So with that config in hand, we can now ask GetIstio to go generate this CA for us, to go talk to the Google Certificate Authority, create an intermediate signing cert. And then what it'll actually do is, because we told it, hey, go to Istio system and override the CA cert secret, it'll actually push that into the system. And so we were able to do that. And I want to break down what this command actually did, because there was actually kind of a lot of stuff that just happened. So first, let's go and look. We ran GenCA. What does that actually do under the hood? And I'm just going to pop open the code real quick. And I already happen to be in GetIstio in CA certs. I happen to know that this lives under providers, and there's AWS and GCP here. And basically what this did is it made a GCP client. It went ahead and started to create, initialize a key pair that it wants to create. Went ahead and built that certificate signing request for the Google CA, and then went ahead and just issued that request. We got back a certificate body from that, and then we just built it into a Kubernetes secret. And that secret we didn't actually have to push. This also exists on disk, and you wouldn't know this necessarily without reading through the source code here. But there is a GetIstio directory here. There's a few different things under it, like our config, but there's also this secret. And we saw, actually, if I go look, we did 2.7. You can see I have a couple around from me testing earlier. But if we go look, we can see what is this that is here on disk. And the answer is we actually persist the Kubernetes secret there. And this is the various cert data that Istio needs in the format that it expects. And if we want to see like what is this data and did it actually come from somewhere that we care about, we can see that. So if we do this, this is our root. This is our root cert.crt. So first, what I'm going to do, this is base64 encoded, like any good Kubernetes secret is. So I'm going to first just go ahead and decode it into that root cert file. And we see, hey, this is a certificate. Great, that looks good. Let's go ahead and ask OpenSSL to look at it. I want to see the cert text. I don't care about what the output is. And my input is going to be this root cert.crt. And here we see that this is a valid X509 certificate. We see the issuer and the subject are what we expect. We see our cert expiry matches what we gave. And so all good. So this looks like a normal cert. And then all that GetIstio did was, went and asked for that from the Google CA, got the Google CA to issue it. And then we built it into a Kubernetes secret that is exactly the secret that's written on disk here. And you can see, if we went and looked at some of the other ones that are here, it's the same thing. They just have different certificate text inside of them, right? So that's all that's happening, right? We could actually do this with OpenSSL as well. And we're probably going to add an OpenSSL tool just so people can see how it works locally. But we went out, we got that cert, we encoded it into a Kubernetes secret. And then if we go and get the secrets, and again, we asked it to put it into the Istio system namespace so we can see that we have our CA certs here. Great. So now what we should be able to do is go ahead and deploy our a pod. Whoops. Oh. I already labeled our namespace for sidecar injection. We see that 0 out of 2 pods. So we should be able, we would expect that everything will come up and work fine. I actually did not schedule a workload into this cluster before, so it is actually having to pull the pods. So that's probably why it's taking a second here. I'll use the snazzy.watch. Great, cool. Okay, so we're up and running. And now what I want to see is what is the secret configuration that's there on this pod. So Istio has tools for this. So if we use Istio control, there's a proxy config command, and there's a whole bunch of different and useful things under this proxy config. So let me just show you the help text for this real quick. We can get bootstrap configuration. We can get the clusters, the endpoints, the listeners. We can use it to change logging. But here in our case, what we really want to see is the secrets. And we want to see it for this pod. Great. So we see that there's 2 cert chains here. I want to see them in JSON there. Great. And so here we see that, and this is the raw Envoy config for this data. We see there is a root CA here. And what we want to do is does this actually match like the one that we had before, right? Did this actually work end to end? And so we can see that. And again, this is the secrets that this sidecar that's deployed in the cluster is going to use. So again, I'll go ahead and do a base64 decode here. I happen to know that inline bytes in Envoy configuration are always base64 encoded. So we'll take that in and we'll put it out to this actual.crt. We can again ask OpenSSL. I'm not going to repeat the OpenSSL incantation because I was lucky enough to get it correct once, and I don't think I would get it correct a second time. And again, here we actually see our root of trust. This is actually, it looks like the Istio default one. So let me go up and grab the other one here. And actually, is this the same cert? It looks like it may be. Looks like maybe I screwed it up. Oh no. So let's take a look at the other one as well. And again, we'll just run that same OpenSSL command. There we go. This looks, nope, it looks like we're using the cluster local, looks like we're using Istio's root for both. Oh no, I did do it right. I think actually what we did is change the secret name in Istio, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's Istio CA secret now, rather than the CA certs. So it looks like we have a little bit of a bug there that we need to go figure out why testing didn't catch that one. But this is end-to-end how things work. That secret there, we could go take and, for example, if we looked at this one, whoops, let me not do that for you. If we got this one out, we would see that this is the same CA cert CA key. If we went, and I think we could just rename our CA cert secret to be the Istio CA secret, and everything would work here. It looks like we just have a bug in the 1.9 version where we're not linking up the name correctly. But this is kind of the main thing that I wanted to walk through here. So Istio control, really GetIstio, very easy CLI for doing things like, you may have missed it up at the very beginning when we actually updated the tool itself and updated the version of Istio control that we were using to make sure that we are using one of the latest there. We can use it to create certs for us. We saw a little bit about how those certs actually work. We save them onto disk. Whoops. Here under this GetIstio secret directory, in general, if you haven't been, if you weren't aware, GetIstio itself does actually store a bunch of data here. For example, if we look in the bin, this is where, or if we look in Istio, sorry, this is where we actually store the versions of Istio that are downloaded as well, that kind of thing. But most importantly for this, we have secrets. They're saved on disk as Kubernetes secrets. Those are what are then taken and applied. Again, we'll go fix the name bit there so everything works end to end. But hopefully that helps kind of connect both A, how Istio secrets work, B, what then GetIstio is doing there to help you get those secrets from existing CAs. And so one of the things we're going to see over time is support for more and more CAs. I know Azure is in queue. Cert Manager is there today. Unfortunately, this uses actually the goodness that Cert Manager built out that Istio speaks. So these kind of work natively, and we don't really even have to do anything. And then very soon, we'll also have some that cover some other cert integrations, including Venafi, including FUX, and others. But that's the main stuff I wanted to show. So questions, comments, concerns, rebuttals? Anything else we want to talk through, Sean?
Awesome, Zach. Thank you. And I do want to apologize. The audio problems were me, not Zach. So, you know what? It happens. So, a couple things on this, man. You walk through documentation that's on a public website. What a novel concept.
I know, right?
I mean, like simplicity, right? And this is the thing about GetIstio, right? This is our goal. We want to make it as simple and easy to use, right? Zach is obviously highlighting some of the documentation that's already on the website. He mentioned, he obviously showed GCP, but we've got AWS, we've got Cert Manager, and there will be more added in the future, right? We want the community, we want our partners, we want everybody to contribute to this as much as possible, right? How you're using Istio and really the simplicity of this, right? Not only Istio, but Envoy itself. And so feel free to add comments, asks, etc. on the repos. So one of the things, Zach, you mentioned a couple of different binaries Right. Obviously, we have the Istio support, or we have the Istio binaries. We've got tetrate. I even saw something called FIPS. Can
Yep,
you
yep.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think that's worth touching on. So obviously, the Istio builds there are just straight up upstream signed Istio builds. Right. The tetrate builds also are straight up upstream signed Istio builds. And one of the things that I skipped over, y'all saw the versions were very prominent there in the list. 1.9, 1.8.3, 1.8, whatever it was. There's also a flavor version there. So one of the things that tetrate does for our customers, not necessarily as part of GetIstio itself, but as part of the tetrate Istio subscription, which is kind of a different product thing. You can go see that on tetrate.io. We do long-term support for Istio installations. That's why we have that tetrate labeled flavor. That's why we have those flavor versions. Even though today, and if you're looking at any flavor version v0, that's going to be a signed Istio build. Because it's not a fork, it's not different functionality. It is just upstream Istio.
Awesome. I heard it's upstream Istio and not a fork. I like to hear that. I think the community likes to hear that as well. And we are doing our best to support latest releases or dot releases of Istio. I think a couple of them will be coming out here in the next few days. So we're excited about that. With that, I'll say thanks to Zach. Zach, you have any closing comments before we close it up today?
Nope. Thanks for having me. Hopefully this is valuable. I do want to also stress, I called out very early on the Istio cheat sheet there on GetIstio as well. That's a really nice resource, especially I had a buddy that's worked in infrastructure for a while, has looked at Istio kind of on and off for the past like 3 years. And he said, hey, I'm finally going to kick the tires on it. I know the basics, but like, how do I actually go do it? And I pointed him over there, right? And it's a really great, useful resource. If you're in that kind of a boat, right, where I want just kind of a quick outline of some of the practical stuff that I might need or want to do in Istio. So that's what I'll end it with. Go check that out. Super useful. Please go file issues on GetIstio site, on the GetIstio repo there for stuff on the site. Oh, and here we can hear the fire department go through. But yeah, thank y'all.
Absolutely, Zach. Thank you. And I mentioned it earlier. Here's a quick link to all the IstioCon sessions. And this was really awesome today, Zach. And to the community, reach out. We are reach out on Twitter, on YouTube, on our repos. We want to hear from you. We actually want to get you involved in this and presenting some content, how you're using Istio, how you're using Envoy. So with that, I will say thank you to Zach and to everyone else. And till next time, we'll see you. Thank you.